Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I'm Michael Jaïs. I'm the CEO and founder of Launchmetrics. And soon joining me, I have Luca Solca, who is the managing director at Bernstein. Together, we will be discussing key trends and future opportunities in the world of luxury and business strategy. Luca brings a wealth of experience and expertise in this field. And of course, I'm super excited to hear his perspective. But before that, I would like to reflect on 2024, as it was really like a very interesting year in many ways for many of us. For Launchmetrics, I can start with that. Joining the Lectra family, it was just 1 year ago, in January 2024, has been really transformative. This partnership has introduced new synergies, enhanced capabilities, and really a stronger foundation to help brands of all sizes, from conglomerates to emerging brands, improve their business, enable us to really provide our customers with a unique value proposition, and backed by Lectra's 50 years of experience. Today's value chain is really fragmented, and it makes it like increasingly difficult to adapt to changes and to meet new demands. Existing tools are no longer suited for this very dynamic environment, and that requires a kind of redefinition of processes and a more interconnected approach. This approach includes three major areas: creation, basically where visionary ideas come to life; manufacturing, where somehow digital designs are transformed into tangible products; and market, which is where fashion products or brand campaigns are delivered to consumers. This is where Launchmetrics come in. And basically, when you think about creation, it's about collections. Manufacturing is about products, and market is more of a brand. And the ability on the data side to interconnect the collection, the brand, and the product, and to connect and link together all the dimensions is a major advantage for our customers, strengthening our partnerships and amplifying our collective impact as a group. So if we focus on what is Launchmetrics' mission today, we've built a suite of tools that really helps our customers improve their brand performance. And somehow we help them bridging strategy and execution. We help them creating also stronger emotional connections with their audience by leveraging insights that go somehow beyond numbers, capturing the essence of what makes them unique. For too long, our industry has prioritized quantitative analysis at the expense of branding's deeper emotional essence. I think it's time to really restore the balance by combining the precision of data with creative-driven qualitative insights. And by doing that, brand can gain a meaningful competitive edge. So this is our mission today. If I focus now on our ultimate goal, it is really to empower professionals like you to make strategic decisions that future-proof your business, helping you to achieve more with less while driving long-term impact and creating meaningful competitive edge. And this is important because 2024, more than ever, was also the start of what we are seeing today, where fashion, luxury, and beauty stand at a critical juncture. Digital transformation, shift of consumer expectation, limited market share, an increasing demand for personalized experience. So with all this, brand must leverage real-time data to stay relevant. It's not about creating desirability. It's about carving out a real competitive advantage and capturing market in order to really improve your market share in a landscape where growth is no longer guaranteed. Yet, many still struggle to unlock the future potential of technology to drive, in the same time, creativity and efficiency. If you add to this the pressure to balance sustainability, innovation, while in the same time maintaining strong customer relationships, it is a lot. To succeed, brands need to really differentiate themselves, creating a feeling of desirability as well as a unique emotional connection with consumers. The key to sustaining that competitive advantage is in three concepts: identity, image, and reputation. It is really about answering fundamental questions. Does the brand stand out? Is it unique? Do consumers trust it? Is there a sense of emotional resonance? Does it have strong reputation? Can I trust them? These elements are critical in building a lasting and meaningful relationship with today's savvy and really demanding consumers. And that's why we've organized today's event. We want you to feel inspired by today's session speakers, living with new ideas, new perspective to fuel your strategies and drive brand performance, so that the brand performance of today is the competitive edge of tomorrow. And so, without further ado, I would like to invite Luca to join me and kick off the main event. Welcome, Luca.
Hello, hi, how are you?
I'm very good.
To see you, Michael.
Happy and excited to have this discussion with you in front of.
Likewise, it's good to share ideas.
Great. So, Luca, you're really in the perfect position to analyze the market and to provide perspective. What are your thoughts on the current state of business? What would you say are the biggest challenges brands face today in maintaining relevance and performance?
But I think that, first of all, we need to look at the context. So we had seen this big sigh of relief, a collective sigh of relief out of the COVID-19 pandemic, with consumers contemplating the idea that they could die during the pandemic, and therefore coming out of the pandemic with willingness to live and higher disposition to spend money and enjoy life. So we had a boom in the post-COVID years, and step by step, I think people have been sobering up, especially people in the middle class that were then later hit by interest rates going up, for example, and by higher inflation. So 24 was in a way a year of atonement, and a year during which luxury had to confront a more subdued growth, quite a significantly more subdued growth if we look at companies like LVMH, which are typically considered to be the proxy of the sector. Going forward, I think that the most important challenges for brands would be to reconnect with consumers, to excite consumers. So I think newness is going to be once again the calling card to get consumers back into the brands. And I think that at least in some areas, there's a value for money question. My sense is that prices have gone up more than product content or faster than product content. And there's a need to inject more content to justify current prices. Also, there's a need to possibly adjust the marketing mix for those brands that have moved enthusiastically upmarket and have maybe forgotten about the entry price consumer. These, I think, are the two most important questions. The other point, which is clearly very relevant for the industry in general, is how to potentially cope with relatively subdued growth coming from the Chinese consumers for a while more, as the confidence crisis in China is predominantly dictated by the fall of the real estate market. And we know from previous experiences that real estate markets do not get fixed overnight.
Yes, and to really like face this challenge and this uncertainty, and also like the shift in consumer behavior, like how are these dynamics somehow reshaped brand priorities over like the last 2 years, focus on the past?
I think that for sure a common thread that we've seen is that the brands have been trying to tap into the most fortunate consumers. There's been, in comparison to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a bigger involvement and a bigger contribution from the very top end consumers. That has definitely been one of the most important changes that the industry has gone through recently. The number of limited editions, the VIP facilities, the ad hoc events, and so on has continued to multiply. The previews, the collection previews, and so on. This is definitely one. I think that there's also been a significant reduction, or let's say a realignment of distribution channels. At one point, maybe 5 years ago, there was this idea that online would have grown to mid-double digits even, or at least 30% or so. I think that now that the world has reopened and we're out of COVID in an established manner, we see that online is important, but it is not as big as once thought. And as a consequence, I think physical retail remains key, remains crucial. And what is really relevant in this world where people can switch from one channel to the other is also having a tighter grip on distribution, which means putting wholesale under control, switching to concessions and controlling prices so that you avoid as much as possible channel conflict. I think that this has definitely been another important front. What we've seen that the biggest players are doing is that I think they're trying to embrace languages and areas that would become universal. I think that there's been probably a push towards a less globalized world. The rise of, let's say, America first, or China first, or Germany first, or France first movements has made it so that finding common themes, finding common values is a bit more difficult for brands in their marketing narrative. And therefore, big groups have embraced areas that are global in nature. I'm thinking about sport, the high-profile sponsorship of the Olympic Games by the LVMH Group, then the sponsorship of Formula One more than and on top of being exercises of aimed at leveraging scale, because you can only pay so much money if you're really very big. There are also attempts to find a common language across the world that consumers would still react positively to.
And in that context where somehow it's more and more difficult to become a universal brand, if we focus on the concept of brand performance, what would you say are the key pillars that drive success, and what should brand be focusing on?
I think that first and foremost, success comes from brands being relevant to consumers. We are in an industry that is providing products that people need to want to buy. People don't find luxury goods brands indispensable. You really have to desire them. And so I think embracing the right values, having the ability to combine your core values, your DNA, with the current zeitgeist is what makes or breaks a brand. We've seen that achieving this balance is not a trivial pursuit. I think it is quite complex. It's not enough to just embrace the style of the moment. At one point, it seemed that this would be a recipe for a continuing success, especially when many brands embraced the streetwear codes and made a fortune with T-shirts and sneakers. But I think that the change in taste that has been relatively abrupt, the move away from streetwear and the embracing of quiet luxury, has demonstrated that not all brands can move around in terms of what they stand for as they wish. Some brands are more able to do so because they have a bit more of a center stage position, so they can shift a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right and embrace the current aesthetics of the moment. Other brands that have been known for being spiky, think about Gucci, for example, struggle a bit more when they try to be the opposite of what they're known for. So it is difficult for Gucci to convince consumers that they're authentic and that they are relevant when they try to be as quiet as they possibly can. And so the experiment of making Gucci less dependent on fashion, more bon chic, bon genre, more demure, it's not providing the hoped for results, and we've seen it with the minus 25% that Gucci posted in the third quarter as an example.
Yeah, discussing Gucci is a good example of like the importance of desirability. What does that mean to you, this concept? We've been like, of course, discussing that like a little bit, but in terms of concept, what does it mean for you?
I think that at the end of the day, people are prepared to spend a significant amount of money on luxury brands because they see them as the ideal selves that they would like to be. They see that through them, they become their better selves. And so there must be a connection between what you aspire to and the values that these brands stand for. I call luxury brands, in a way, identity crutches. So that, I think, is where the root cause of desirability is. A brand is desirable when it allows you to enhance your own, the perception of yourself, basically, your self-perception. And then I think that communicating that to others is only a next step. Clearly, we all can see the fact that by showing off what you have, people even further reinforce their identity. But I think at the root cause of desirability is the fact that brands reassure people. And in fact, brands, luxury brands, tend to be even more relevant to consumers that have just changed their social status. If you have made a good fortune for yourself and you want to reinforce the idea that now you're a better person than you were a few years ago, then buying luxury goods products and associating yourself with them is giving you this reassurance. And in order to maintain this ideal connection, brands have to be careful to stand for the right values. And also, they need to be careful to weave into their marketing narrative any new values that could become relevant or important in the current debate in our societies, which is, I think, one of the reasons why brands have been very quick to embrace values such as inclusivity, such as sustainability. I think these are all attempts to smooth out this identification process and to avoid that something could potentially be preventing it because you stand for the wrong thing or you for the wrong value, and all of a sudden the magic is broken.
Okay, so basically we've been settling the foundation of brand performance and desirability, discussing like what happened in 2024. If we are looking ahead to 2025, what do you foresee as the key to success to keep the magic going on, keep the momentum? How should the brands prioritize their effort to remain competitive?
I think that the game is always the same. It's a matter of trying to understand where consumer preferences and consumer tastes go. My understanding is that quiet luxury is not going to last forever, and we see that there's more and more imitators of quiet luxury brands. When a trend goes into fast fashion, then that trend, in my experience, is about to fade and be replaced by something else. So I think that we should be alert that the world doesn't evolve in a linear extrapolation. The world goes through a number of inflections, and we may be close to an inflection, especially as the political environment has changed, especially as the beginning, that major conflicts in the world could potentially be resolved. A new feeling of relief, a new feeling of, being happier could possibly be changing the prevailing tastes and lead consumers again to more of a self-expression, less of a conformism, and a more, let's say, vivid representation of what they want to stand for. And as a consequence, I wouldn't be writing off brands that have a bit more of a maximalist tradition. I think that some of them are coming to the market maybe just at the right time. I'm thinking of Versace, for example, that has been struggling a lot and which seems to be up for sale. That could potentially be one of the brands that, if managed the right way, could possibly be particularly appropriate for this new chapter that we're about to see.
And in this fast changing environment, like what is the importance of data? It's not secret that in your role you need to analyze many forms of data in order to inform on your strategic decision, right? And so how do you do that with your team? How do you leverage data, AI, advanced analytics in this particular context of an industry that needs to balance creativity and performance? How do you think that
Well,
brands?
I think that that is giving us quite a significant role. Our industry, as you say, is not data rich.
Mhm.
I think it is very important, especially if you want to try and understand where the inflections could potentially materializing. It is very important to try and get a good handle on what is going on. We use some leading indicators, which, for example, come from the analysis of social media traction on different platforms and what brands are attracting more interest or less interest for that matter. We're using concurrent indicators like measures of in-store traffic that would confirm what leading indicators could possibly be pointing to. We use trailing indicators like the presence of discounts and promotions and how big those discounts become, if they become bigger or smaller, which again could point to less or more consumer interest. And then we interpolate all of these data with field research, with talks to people in the industry, to retailers, in order to have some validation of the hypothesis that we bring to the market and the investment recommendation that we bring to the market. It's very important we try as much as possible to follow what I would call more broadly a scientific approach. We have the hypothesis, we then look at whether the data and let's say the input from the market confirms or falsify these hypotheses, and then refine them and draw our investment conclusions from them. If there were more data, we would be less relevant and we would have to manufacture and invent less. But as there isn't a lot of data, then this role of bringing analysis where there was none is definitely useful.
And it's super clear on how you are using it and leveraging it. How, in your opinion, should brands be looking at their data as well to really better understand their brand performance?
I think that the brands have a lot of ways to use data and to be even more granular than we are. I think that, for example, there's a lot to be learned when it comes to how collections are structured, especially at the time when prices have been changing so much. One of the most important choices in my industry experience is the briefing, so the structure of the collection, which products you want to have at which price points. Having a quantified representation of where the market stands, where your competitors could be, is of very high importance in my view. I think that there's a lot of data and there's a lot of AI that could possibly be helping brands also when it comes to allocating inventory. Many of the luxury brands today have hundreds of stores in different locations, and allocating the right amount of inventory to each region, to each store is a daunting process, and that can definitely be optimized. We see more and more brands keeping a higher level of inventory centrally so that they can deploy it as a function of where the sellout is actually materializing. Mm-hmm. I think that it's also very important for brands, given the amount of communication and advertising money that is being poured in the market, to measure where this is actually turning effective. There's more and more of an opportunity to do so, with influencers playing a big role and being very exposed to consumers directly, and that is allowing you to get a better perspective of who's creating value and who's not. And these are just a few examples. I think that there's really a lot of opportunity to make the industry, let's say, more normal, quote unquote, in terms of being driven on the back of rationality and on the back of good insights in what is going on. This is never going to be an industry that is purely rational. Like building bridges, in a way, you could argue that there's a lot of rationality and not a lot of invention, even if this would be maybe not generous enough relative to the beautiful creations that architects and engineers can come up with. In our industry, there's definitely a huge role for creativity and for invention. But this doesn't mean that you need to be creative when it comes to how you manage logistics or how you manage finance. You want to keep creativity in the product and in the communication department.
Yes, creativity is really like key to it. But if you had to predict one major shift in fashion industry, let's say over the next 3 years, what would it be, and how should brands prepare to it?
I'm not sure that there's going to be one single point that is immediately springing to mind. I think that running a business is a lot more like driving fast on the motorway than going to the moon. You cannot anticipate a trajectory that is definitely going to work, because the environment that you confront is ever-changing and very complex and subject to quick and abrupt shifts. So my view is what would be very important for these brands is to build stronger and stronger management teams, better processes, so that they can adjust and adapt appropriately. Traditionally, our industry, which was only very recently invented, has been dependent on people that had imperial powers and that were accredited for being infallible. I remember when I was in the industry myself, running a luxury goods conglomerate, the idea was that the designer would always be right, because if the collection was commercially successful, he was a genius. If the collection wasn't commercially successful, he was so much a genius that consumers couldn't understand him. And so I think the most important change that has to happen and has been happening is for the industry to be able to work more on the back of teams, on the back of pulling together different skills, on the back of discussing and understanding where the trends are and adjusting the business quickly to them, aided and helped by all of the possible analysis that comes available.
Yeah, there is, by the way, a very interesting comment in the chat. We receive like all the question that is connected to both like the creativity side and the AI and data we discussed. So comment is like quite simple, like AI and data are everywhere, but luxury is all about creativity and emotion. So brand needs to find ways to use these tools without losing their magic. What are your thoughts about it? Do you have any suggestion on how they can do this?
Well, absolutely. I think that at the end of the day, one of the reasons why our industry is particularly interesting is that it combines science and art. And there's no replacing art. It's very difficult to rationally explain why you like certain art or a certain painting. And I think that to some extent, fashion has to provide the same impact to consumers. It has to inspire, it has to move, it has to create a feeling, it has to change the way you see things. And there's no turning that into a formula. That is why in our industry, people that have a creative responsibility are rewarded so much, and it doesn't happen by coincidence.
And if we like consider like the C-suite or like the brand executive like as a group, what is a piece of advice that you would give them to really future-proof their strategy for 2025?
I think that we need to take into account that our industry is built on three major pillars. I was discussing this with Remo Ruffini this morning at Moncler. What is unique when you look at brands like Moncler, when you look at brands like Cucinelli, is that they were able to develop at the same time a strong focus on product, a strong focus and development of brand and its meaning, and a very effective focus on direct distribution and how the store plays a role in enhancing the business. So I think that just playing one of these levers and concentrating on product, for example, or concentrating on brand building, forgetting product, would be a major mistake. The three things have to work together. The product has to be compelling and of the right quality, but at the same time, you need to continue to build the identity of the brand. You need to continue to build the depths and the meaning of the brand, and you need to make sure that the store is helping in this process and at the same time remains commercially sustainable so that you have enough retail space productivity to make the stores profitable.
And maybe what we are discussing now is really like probably like the essence of the success, like how can leader like find the right balance between short-term performance goals and long-term brand building?
Well, I think that the two have for sure go hand in hand. There's no long term if you don't manage to survive in the short term. And building these businesses and running them for the short term exposes you to major problems down the road, which is good if you're not interested in the company, if you're not interested in the brand, if you're just a hired gun that is going to be around for a year or two or three, but which is clearly a recipe for disaster for our shareholders. So in all of our research, we try to combine these two levels of analysis. We try to understand if a brand is indeed relevant in the short term, but we're also assessing its structural position. Is it in control of distribution? Is it exposed to what I call sport performance enhancing drugs like off-price and wholesale that in the end are going to come back to haunt you? Is it over distributed? Is it ubiquitous? So much so that in a short while, people will think it is too commonplace in order to be desirable and to be feeling exclusive. So it is very important for us that need to ensure that the savings are deployed appropriately in the market, that we get both boxes ticked.
Okay, very inspiring. Thank you, Luca. We come to the end of what I hope has been like a thoroughly thought-provoking discussion. A very big thank you to Luca for sharing his deep expertise and really invaluable perspective on the future of luxury and business strategy. It's clear that the landscape ahead is full of both challenges and opportunities, and really the ability to blend innovation with emotional resonance would be totally critical for brands to thrive.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael. Thank you all for attending the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have like a great panel discussion focus on the new wave of agencies. Stay tuned and have a great event. Bye-bye.